G'day, it's your old mate Matthew here from the Yarnsman podcast. Today we have Cody Everson on the podcast. We get into a few things really around his life-changing injury, rugby motivations, and being human. If you find any of this, tough to listen, feel free to step out or look at the support resources on our website. But I hope you enjoy the yarn as much as I did. Hello and welcome to the Yarnsman podcast. Today we have Cody Everson joining us. Cody is a father, a husband, Paralympian in Wheel Black, and a yarnsman now. How you going, Cody?
Yeah, really good, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for having me, seeing we're in your house. And
Yeah.
the acoustics seem to be fantastic so far.
Yeah, it's nice and warm too, and I don't have to leave to go anywhere, so
Yeah.
happy days.
Ideal all round.
Yeah.
Well, we'll jump into it then. What have you struggled with in the last week?
It's been a really busy week for me. So I've been fighting a few issues with my son. He's been pretty sick, and also had the wheelchair rugby nationals. And I haven't played wheelchair rugby since, we missed out on qualifying for the Paralympics. So it was a bit weird to get back into the rugby chair and play competition. And we come second. We lost to Auckland. So it was nice to get some wins and play in a final, but it was sort of sucked that we didn't win a competition. And it's my 12th year playing wheelchair rugby, and I've never won a wheelchair rugby like New Zealand nationals. It's it's starting to become a bit of an annoying struggle, I guess.
Yeah, right. Well, you've got a silver, but it's still not the gold, right?
Yeah. I've been to Aussie and I've won a Aussie nationals with New South Wales, but I haven't even won one with my own region.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, that must be a real challenge. How are you kind of balancing that or resolving that in yourself, or is that always just going to be a fire burning?
I think it's always going to be a fire burning, and I've already I work for a wheelchair company, and we sponsor a whole lot of athletes all over the world. And I'm already starting to talk to them about, who can we get over from somewhere over the world that might help get that win.
Boost
that
boost
the team. So that's my plan next year. And with it being a Paralympic year, no international players could come over and play for any of the teams this year. So next year, I'm sure other teams will have the same thing in mind. But I just want to get the best player.
Yeah, it's good. Good. I think that's a good positive mindset.
Yeah. So it's been a struggle, but it's also been, made me think, ahead.
Yeah, good on you. What's something you want to work on in the next week?
Oh, well, I kind of just touched on that, didn't I? Yeah. I think what I want to work on is just figuring out where to next. So obviously I mentioned my son. He's needs his tonsils out, he needs his adenoids burnt out or whatever, and some grommets put in. So just really trying to focus on getting that surgery for him, so he's better, or doing what we can to help him. He's got sent home from preschool today, which is a bit of a pain. So that, and then just every day trying to get through winter and not get sick.
Yeah. Tell me about it. What are you proud of?
I think I'm proud, if I talk about just the week, is just with everything going on, still getting up every day and trying to enjoy the day and the opportunities and having fun with it. So yeah.
I like that. Well, I mean, it's, as I said before, you've got a calming, positive sort of vibe, and I love that. So that's good.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. Like, I think it's one of my strong points, I think, in a way. Like, I always seem to come out the other side, and I always tell myself it's okay to be a bit upset or a bit annoyed, but you can't be annoyed forever. It's okay to have that moment, but you got to move on from it, don't you? So yeah.
Yeah, you do. What gives you hope?
What gives me hope? And it's an interesting question, because I think there's a lot of things that give me hope, because I've gone through so much, and it's kind of like I'm always looking forward now. And yeah, I guess just being around my family and living each day, being healthy, that kind of gives me hope for the future, really, if I look at it in that term of things, that being healthy is the goal. And when you are healthy, you feel so much better about everything. And I went through like 26 days of sickness this winter,
Right.
and it sucked.
Yeah.
It absolutely sucked. But you realize also at the same time how good you felt, when you do feel good. So yeah, that gives me hope in a way.
Yeah, I love that. As someone who's struggling with a migraine and I'm holding it together. I
Yeah,
I
that
get that.
sucks.
It sucks, but you love it when you don't have
Yeah,
it.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, you learn to appreciate it when you don't have it, and
Yeah.
make the most of what you got or what you're doing when you don't have it.
Yeah, 100%. Diving into it, mate, you've obviously been on quite the journey. Would you like to share that with us?
Yeah, yes, and my journey all began when I was 15 years old in 2011, so a few years ago now.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up playing sport. I love sport. I grew up with three brothers who also love sport, so we're always on the bikes, just playing rugby in the street, just, whatever young kids do, we did it. We stayed away from the computers and video games and things like that. And yeah, moving into high school, rugby was the main focus, and for me, I made the first 15 when I was 15 years old. So I was one of the smaller guys,
Yeah.
one of the younger guys, and I always remember my mum saying, you're too small, you should just be playing with people your own age. But every 15-year-old, you think you're invincible, right?
And I remember high school years. Anyone that was 15 in the first 15, that was like you're a god. Like that was you'd made it, right?
You felt like the man,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
100%, yeah. And definitely, I kind of got stuck into that, and I thought I was the man. So yeah, and we were playing Christ College, and it was the first 2 minutes of the game. I never forget the moment because I remember seeing a gap and I called for the ball, and I felt someone sort of tackle me from behind, and as I fell, the guy fell back on top of me, and as I hit the ground, he kind of hit me and my neck bent, and obviously that was where my journey began. I remember lying there and I was trying to get up and I just couldn't. I was trying to yell and I couldn't yell for help or anything like that. It was a really surreal feeling, like that I just felt helpless. And then it was actually the manager who come out, and he said that he seen fear in my eyes. So he knew something was wrong, and they come out and started touching my legs, and they were asking if I could feel, and I couldn't feel anything. So they instantly said to one of the players to grab my neck, well, hold my head still. So they held my head still and waited for the ambulance to come. So from there, the ambulance turned up and I'd started to get pins and needles. And for anyone that's had pins and needles before, they're not really nice. They're weird feeling, but mine were from my forehead to my toes. And it was just like a wave. It would like just rush right through. It was weird. And they put me in the ambulance, and I remember saying to my coach, like, I'll be back. And I honestly thought I'd be back. And around that time, we just had the earthquakes. So all the roads were still damaged. And for anyone who knows where Christ College is the hospital's pretty much right behind it.
Yeah, right.
And that was probably one of the longest ambulance rides I've ever had. It was probably about 40, 50 minutes to go around Hagley Park. Because it was a neck injury, that they didn't want to make it worse. So they had to probably, go 10K around the roads with all the bumps. So there was no more damage. And I remember getting into hospital, and there were about 12 or 13 doctors just waiting, and my mum and dad. And I kind of knew then that something was seriously wrong. So yeah, they rushed me into surgery, and they stretched my neck by putting tongs in my head and hung half my body weight off my head to stretch my neck out. And I think I was like that for about 24 hours. And then I went into surgery, and they did like a bone graft. And what I did was I dislocated C5-6. And what that means is my bone dislocated into my spinal cord, and that pretty much cut off the nerves to the rest of my body. So the quicker they got into surgery and got it all sorted was potentially the more I'd get back. But unfortunately, the swelling and things like that was too much. So yeah, some of the lines got stopped. I spent 2 weeks in ICU. I still didn't realise that I was going to be in a wheelchair. Still hadn't been told I'd never walk again. So after those 2 weeks, getting into the spinal unit, leaving ICU and going to the spinal unit, I remember going through the doors and seeing a whole bunch of wheelchairs, and I was like, oh yeah, this is strange. getting into my room, and the doctors come in, and yeah, one of the first things they say is, "Oh, look, like you're probably never going to walk again." And you imagine a 15-year-old getting told that. It's pretty shit.
Yeah,
If I'm
right.
being honest.
But you probably wouldn't take that for a start. You'd be like, oh, yeah, sure, right?
Yeah, 100%. That was my exact thoughts. It was like, yeah, right. Like 100% I'm gonna walk. I had no clue what my next 6 months was gonna be like. And I guess as the days started, coming and going, and I started to figure, this could be it. Like this could be me. And let's not mention, like when you see someone in the street in a wheelchair, you just assume their legs don't work. That's what I assumed. And I can't move my fingers, I couldn't move my arms, I couldn't bring my hand up to feed myself, I couldn't dress myself, I couldn't brush my teeth, I couldn't go to the toilet, couldn't shower myself, I was literally, I guess the best way to describe it was being like a baby, but being fully aware that I was a baby, and I had to have every single thing done for me. And it kind of sucked.
Yeah.
Going from being independent to having that all taken away. So yeah, my mindset was really, to this day, I surprise myself, or I feel confused as well with how, I don't know how I got on with it, and how I accepted it so quickly, and how I decided, I'm just going to do what I can to get what I can back, and just look at every day as a new challenge. And that challenge might have been, brushing my teeth, putting socks on, feeding myself, those were the new challenges. It wasn't going to a party on the weekend, or going out with my mates every day, or learning to drive or anything like that, because that wasn't my reality anymore.
I mean, the question I want to ask is, how was your pain through that whole time?
Do you know, no one's ever asked me that. How was my pain?
Physical pain.
Do you know what's weird? What's weird is I've talked to people about certain things about my accident and things like that, and I feel like I've blocked things out. And
Rightly so.
Yeah, and I don't remember certain parts.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, I think pain is one of those ones that I blocked out because I was so focused on trying to get better.
Yeah.
Almost pain was irrelevant. I remember I couldn't sit up. There were times, because I'd been lying down so much, that as soon as I sat up, I'd be fainty. They'd have to give me pills and things like that to, boost my energy and help me so I wouldn't be so dizzy. So I always remember that was really hard. I had to wear a binder as well because I had no abdominal muscles or anything like that. My body was working overtime just to sit up. So I always remember that was a struggle. And I could only be in my chair for an hour or so a day, and then I was back to lying down.
Yeah.
But yeah, apart from that, it was just getting used to my new body in a way. That was, I think, the hardest part.
And I think the next question I want to ask is, with that kind of understanding, well, was there a point in that journey where you're like, okay, this is the situation, and just being able to brush my teeth, just being able to, shower, as a milestone, as a journey, and I'll just focus on that? Is that kind of how you went about it?
That's exactly how I went about it. In my own head now.
I
think that's how I went about it. And I feel like in those days, that's exactly what I did, was just, I know I had the shit times, and I had times where I didn't want to do anything, and I felt sorry for myself, but I also know that those were far less than what it was when I motivated myself to try and do whatever I can just to get whatever I can back. Extremely grateful that it was in Christchurch. I was from Christchurch. My friends, my family, they didn't miss a day. I spent 6 months in there, and I had friends and family there every single day. So
fantastic.
That really brought a normality into my life, being around my friends, being around my family, seeing them come and go. It also gave me motivation to want to get better so I can go, because I didn't want to be in there forever. So when I'd go to the gym, and when you think about the gym, you think you go to lift weights and things like that. I was going to the gym to learn how to get from a bed to a wheelchair. I was going to the gym to learn how to, hold a toothbrush. I was going to learn how to, get dressed. Like, just it was completely different to what I'd known a gym was beforehand. And yeah, I used to love those times because I could really focus on things, and I had a PT there trying to, help me, and learning how to adapt to the new me. So yeah, I spent 6 months in there, and when I left, I just started being able to transfer from bed to chair. I just gotten into a manual chair, so I spent 4.5, 5 months in a power chair. I still couldn't push myself or anything like that, so
How does the power chair work now, just out of pure
so
interest?
a power chair works as I'd get into a hoist, they'd put me in a hoist, and I'd get hoisted into a power chair, and it was just a hand control. So I'd push forward to go,
sure.
yeah, and back, because I had limited arm movement. That's all I could really do.
Right.
So yeah, and getting, I guess, into a manual chair and trying to push around the hospital was so good because the hospital was so smooth. But the floors are amazing.
Yeah.
But when you get into the real world, it's not like that. You've got footpaths, you've got camber in the road, so they're constantly, you're pushing with one arm. So
And post Quake Christchurch is not going to make that any easier for you.
no, yeah. Especially when I remember getting home, I didn't go home in a power chair, which was really good. So I managed to be in a manual chair by then, but my subdivision was pretty beat up. And there were still lots of cracks in the road, there were bumps everywhere, so getting out and about wasn't ideal. And I always had to have someone with me because I couldn't, push over these bumps and things like that. So that was challenging, and it was also getting home and realizing that I'm potentially going to have to rely on a carer or my family or friends for the rest of my life, because I still wasn't independent, and I'm never going to be with the function that I have. So yeah, it was tough coming home, and again, like, you had your safety net in the hospital where you had nurses and everything like that there to help you, and now you're coming home and you don't have that. So that was another mental barrier. I was like, shit, something else I have to deal with again. And I remember I was in hospital and I met a guy named Shelter Taylor, and he played wheelchair rugby. And he was a previous gold medalist. He played for the Wheel Blacks, and he was showing me videos about it and everything like that. And it was like, this is pretty cool. I'm like, yeah, man. But at the time, I was like, I'm going to walk. Still in denial.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. This was the early days when he come and talked to me about that. And
So was he actually on the ward, or was he come
so
back to
Shelter
visit?
was on the ward. He was a life coach.
Okay.
So you'd spend however long in the spinal unit, and then you'd move over to TR, which is a transitional unit. And he was over there as a life coach, pretty much to show you that it can be done outside of hospital, living a normal life. He would just be around to give you any tips. And when you have an accident and you're in a wheelchair, sometimes you don't want someone who's walking, who's got nothing wrong with them, telling you how to live your life.
I feel like this is like the perfect person for you at that moment, right?
Exactly. So it was cool to see, the way he did things and everything like that, all being he had a little more function than me, but he also had 20 more years in a wheelchair.
Sure.
So yeah, getting home and then going, like, I was struggling at school. I wanted to go by myself, but I was just falling behind. I wasn't seeing my friends as much because I was just constantly tired. I was going to school. I was having to come home early and things like that. And it's like, like, sport gave me so much beforehand, being involved with the team. So why not give it a try? So I remember going to wheelchair rugby and just seeing a whole bunch of guys in wheelchairs just smashing each other.
Well, that was one of the things when I first came across you. Wheelchair rugby, you're bloody mad, right?
It's a pretty cool sport, isn't it? Like, it's so hard to describe to people because all that you see usually is these guys in wheelchairs just smashing
each other.
Yeah, it's like demolition derby in a way. Yeah. And then when you get to the nitty gritty of it, it's like controlled demolition derby. Like, you are smashing into that person, but you're doing it for a reason. And yeah, so I remember going and I was like, this is pretty cool. And they chucked me in a chair, and I just remember I was the slowest one there. And it sucked. I'd gone from being, a winger in rugby, scoring all the tries, to essentially being a prop. In wheelchair rugby, I've got guys twice my age beating me, and it's like, far out, man, this sucks, but, I want to get better. And then I started seeing what these people were doing themselves. I'm like, this is really cool. And then, like I'd have people come and help me, and they'd be like, mate, well, why is this person helping you with this? I'm like, oh, because they're there to help me. Like, yeah, but can you do it? Yeah. They're like, well, you should be doing it yourself. So it was also a bit of a reality check as well, going, okay, like these guys have had this terrible thing happen to them as well, and they're just getting on with it and moving on, and some of them are playing for their country, some of them are just getting back involved in a sport and being around other people, which is positive, and that's something that I think I really needed.
Do you think that there was, you've gone into this group, part of it's like a community, part of it's the sports team. What's the question I want to ask here is, did they welcome you in with open arms and kind of help show the way?
100%. Yeah, they definitely did. And it was such a big range of ages as well, where people had been in wheelchairs for 30 years, to 20 years, to 10 years, to 5 years. Some of them, just had an accident like me. So, everyone was super welcoming and helpful, and want the best for you in a way. Like they want to see you succeed. And wheelchair rugby, we don't have a lot of injuries in New Zealand, which is good. You don't want people to get hurt and you're in a wheelchair. Yeah.
Right.
It does suck. Like, it sucks. But, you learn to adapt to your new life. And these guys, everyone just wants the best for everyone.
And so with that, it's given you a new community and a renewed sense of purpose.
Yeah, 100%, a new purpose. And as I started playing more, I was like, far out. Like, I could be pretty good at this. Going away to tournaments, I was getting to go away with all these bunch of older guys and play wheelchair rugby. I think that was pretty cool. And then seeing the Wheel Blacks when I'd do my first trips to Wellington and Auckland and things, I was like, wow, man, this is real cool. And from there, it was kind of like that was my new focus, like my new purpose. It was like, I want to be a Wheel Black, and I started training, wanting to get better, and putting a lot more time into that. And eventually, a few years later, I actually made my debut for the Wheel Blacks in 2014. Yeah,
fantastic.
It was cool, and I remember going up there, and we were playing against Australia, who were the best team in the world. And I had my friends actually come up and surprise me, so I didn't even know they were coming. And it was a 5-game series, and I played all of probably like 2-3 minutes out of the whole thing, and I was gutted. My friends had come up. I'm like, far out, like, this sucks. I'm not even playing. And I think that also made me realize, this is a professional sport in a way. Like, to be the best, you want to be the best to play, and I'm still not quite there yet.
But if we go with, is that 3 years?
Yeah,
is that 3 years from?
4, yeah, three and a bit years. Yeah, 4 years pretty much.
Fuck me, that's impressive.
Yeah, so when you look at it like that,
yeah, right?
Yeah, and I was only 18 or something like that. Like, I was still young. So I had a lot of growing to do, but I was also like, yeah, okay, like, I know I can be better. So that was where all my focus went after that, was wanting to be better. And 2 years later, it was the same tournament, and I'd actually worked my way into the starting lineup. But during that time, we'd just been to France before that to qualify for the Paralympics for Rio. And we actually missed out, so we didn't qualify. We lost by 2 points to France, in France. And getting home, I kind of never really went out. Like, I was like, okay, rugby, rehab, that was my kind of life. And then getting back, it was like, you know what, like, I'm going to go drink with my friends, I'm going to go party and things like that. And it was in the lead up to the same tournament against Aussie, and it was actually going to be at home in Christchurch. So it was going to be my first time playing for New Zealand in front of my friends and family, and I was super pumped. And I went out one night with the guys and got home, and good old Snapchat was quite big back then, and one of the guys was videoing me and put something on my story, which players seen and the coach seen, which I shouldn't have been doing. And I actually got dropped for that tournament. I remember the next morning I was getting a phone call from my coach and things. I'm like, oh no, and I looked at it, I knew exactly what it was about, and so I ignored that as much as I could. Finally answered, and yeah, obviously people had seen a video that I did, and yeah, I got dropped, and I was gutted because I'd already done all the newspaper interviews, already told all my friends, all my family that I'm going to be playing, and yeah, to then go, oh, actually no, I'm not, because I fucked up and did some stupid shit. But, you know, like I knew at the same time it was my own fault. So I kind of just thought, you know what, it is what it is. I've got to sort of take it on the chin and help the team.
But also there's a thing there of needing some form of outlet after
Yeah.
everything that's happened and you know, the tournament overseas. There's a need for an outlet.
Yeah, yeah. And I felt like, you know, like I was finally sort of getting to live that teenage life in a way that, you know, like I was out with my friends, everything was normal. I felt like I was in a good place with my independence. So yeah, I'd worked so hard to try and go to the Paralympics, and I didn't get to do that. So yeah, it was kind of like, oh, you know, like I'm going to enjoy myself. But then it kind of also made me realize how much I love the sport, and how much it's given me, and everything like that, and how much being involved in the team again and letting all the players down. And then yeah, so I got on with it, moved on, you know, tried to do what I could for the team, and the coach actually said to me, oh, the way you've handled this, we're really proud of you. We're not going to let you play all the games, but we're going to let you play a couple. So
there we go.
Yeah. And the first game I wasn't allowed to play, we lost. Second game I played, and we took it to double overtime and lost by 1 point. Third game couldn't play. Fourth game I played, and we won.
Awesome.
And fifth game I wasn't allowed to play, and we lost. So it was kind of a shitty thing for me, because it was like, well, first of all, I done something wrong. Second of all, I didn't get to play all 5 games. But third, like, we could have had a chance of beating the best team in the world if I was just able to play all of them. So yeah, 2 years later, same tournament, and I was captain. It was the first time I was named captain. So it was, I think, like, it was a real cool 6 years for me, like in between those times, to see how far I'd come as a person and as a player, to go not starting to starting, but screwed up a little bit, and then 2 years later, captain of the All Blacks.
Well, it just shows that that's life, and it's kind of, that journey's almost kind of representative of your physical journey as well, right?
Yeah. And I love telling that story. Like, there's obviously so much in between that happened, but I think, like, those 2 years, if you put down the milestones of each event, it kind of shows how far I'd come. And yeah, and then just moving on from that, you know, obviously meeting Jess, my wife now, and she got involved with wheelchair rugby. She fell in love with it, and she actually started travelling away as a carer with the team, support worker, so we got to travel the world together.
Fantastic.
And, you know, hang out and everything like that, and play wheelchair rugby, and she actually got to come to the Paralympics with us as well as a All Black staff, so that was really cool. And then obviously we got pregnant and had a kid, and your priorities completely shift from there. So that was probably one of the hardest times for me after having Emilio, because it was like, you know what, like, wheelchair rugby, my life was, I had this crazy accident. I got on with it. I moved on, you know, like I still do. I shit every day from it, but I found wheelchair rugby, a sport that I loved, put all my time into it, and that was my priority. And then all of a sudden, I find someone that I love, I want to be with, and I want to have a family with, and then all of a sudden I have a son, and then it's like, actually rugby, like, that's, you know, that's not my biggest priority anymore. Like, I want to be at home, and the traveling and things like that, and we don't get paid to play. So it's also, when you look at it, and I guess in the bigger picture, it's a hobby, if that makes sense, because we're not getting paid to play. We are putting all this time into it, but we're not actually like we're training like professionals, but we're not getting paid like it. So it's really hard to sort of have that life balance when you're sort of wanting to be at home and things like that, and also play a sport that is very demanding on the travel side of things.
You've had a few moments in your life where you've had to come to what I'll call it a new chapter or a realisation. One, there was the accident. There's a couple in through your playing career, but kind of getting towards, would you say you're getting towards the end of your career, or just looking at, that there's more to life than just rugby?
I think there's more to life than just rugby.
Yeah.
I think is where I'm getting at. Because every time I get in my rugby chair and play, I love playing. But the one thing that I really struggled with was not being ever since having Emilio, it kind of brought back that I'm not fully independent. I do need help. I am disabled, and there's things that I can't do. And that really shifted my priorities again, because I couldn't even pick my kid up. Imagine that, it sucks. I couldn't change a nappy. He's crying, I couldn't go and get him. I couldn't do anything really, and it kind of really put things into perspective again for me, and I really struggled with that. So I felt that when I was going away to Wheel Black camps and things like that, I wasn't at home, and Jess was doing everything, and I'd come home and Jess was doing everything because I couldn't. So I felt that I wanted to be around her emotionally and with Emilio as much as I could, even though I couldn't physically help him. Just being there made me feel better about the situation. So I really struggled with going away to rugby and going and doing all these things, because I felt that I wasn't able to be there physically for him. Why am I taking all this time to do that? So I think it was just new chapters and trying to figure out how I can make it work. And the talk was always, when he gets older, you're going to be able to do more for him, which is 100% true.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine you'd be growing quite a good bond with them, but in quite a different way, in a special way.
Yeah, 100% in a completely different way, and they adapt.
Yeah.
To you and what you can do and things like that. So, yeah, but it was still extremely tough because, you'd have other people, able-bodied, friends who have just had kids and things like that, and they could just pick their kid up and take them out, and I couldn't look after my kid, I couldn't get him dressed or anything, so I always had to have someone around to help me. So again, I go back to the start where I talk about, it's to be upset for a little bit. I'd still try to allow myself to do that, because if I didn't do that, then far out, I'd never get over it.
But you're still human. Even though exactly. Just Herculean story in my mind, right? You're still human.
Yeah. So, and I think for me, I'm a real person who is really present. I try not to dwell on the past and look too far into the future. I like to kind of be here and now, but having Emilio, it really made me go, holy shit, man, this is tough. But we had to look into the future in a way, because it was when he's 1, I'm going to be able to do so much more. Now he's 2 and he's climbing all up over me. He can climb into his pram himself. He can, he can do so much, and I can sort of guide him into doing things now. So that's cool, but it's just, it's weird, because I've been in a chair just gone, 13 years, and imagine, every day there's a new challenge in a way. Well, not every day, but kind of every day, what I mean? There's been so much that I've gone through throughout that whole time, and I guess anyone can say that for their 13 years of their life, shit, what have I done?
Well, you've done quite a lot. What I think there's 2 kind of final questions. I'll go off on a tangent and we'll come back. Have you ever spoken with the guy who tackled you that day?
I've never spoken to the guy that tackled me, no. Apparently, years ago, he's seen my friends in McDonald's one night and said, oh, hey, I'm actually the guy that tackled Cody. But I don't know how that come across or how even he knew who my friends were or anything like that. But never spoken to him.
Right. It'd be an interesting conversation.
Yeah, it's a weird one. Like I don't feel like there's a conversation that needs to be had, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Just because he didn't do it intentionally. We were playing rugby, and unfortunately, it could have been anyone that did it. Who knows? I could have did it to someone extent, but yeah, I'm sure he every now and again would think about it and go, "Holy shit!" And I'm sure he knows what happened.
Yeah.
And who knows, social media these days is really good. He's probably seen my social media and things like that. And it might help him to see, that I'm doing well. And I hope he is too.
It's just such a hugely positive mindset. I suppose the kind of to finish with, what advice or recommendation would you have for anyone going through something, a kind of a huge life traumatic event to keep and maintain the positive mindset and approach that you have?
Yeah, I think my advice is for my own personal growth and how I've moved on with things is I've always kind of given myself a moment to be upset, but I've also kind of gone, there is always someone worse off. Whether it's a physical disability, a mental disability, something traumatic that's happened to them in their life. Like everyone's got their own issues, or everyone's gone through something in their own way. And I don't think you can ever judge someone for how they deal with something, because everyone's different, everyone's unique in their own way, and everyone deals with things differently. So you have to learn what works for you. And sometimes it's okay to talk about it. It's okay to be upset about it. But I think, life is extremely short and you do not know what's around the corner. It's just life can throw some crazy shit at you. So it's just trying your best to go, okay, this is my moment where I'm upset. This is my moment where I'm having a hard time. But this moment is going to pass if I let it. And if I look for the positive things out of it as well. That's my advice really, is just as you will come out the other side if you give yourself your moments and try and look at the positives out of those things as well.
Love it. That's fantastic advice. And Cody, thank you so much for sharing your yarn today. We're looking forward to you sharing your yarn tomorrow night as well. And we're looking forward to seeing you win that national trophy in time to come.
Yeah, maybe 1 year, maybe 10, who knows?
Thanks, mate.
All good.